Hello, my sewing friends. I wanted to share with you one fail, one hopefully I can fix it, and one I fixed it and it worked. 3 projects that I think are going to be helpful to you if you're a new sewer. I want to encourage you because I want you to know that, listen, I've been sewing for a long time. I learned to sew when I was 9 years old. I have been consistently sewing since then, and I just turned 60 last June. Oh my gosh, how can I possibly be that old? I can't believe I just admitted that, but you know what? It is what it is. So obviously, when I say I've been sewing for a long time, I really truly have. I had a bridal business at one point where I sewed for others. I've often sewn for others in that I've done alterations from time to time. I sew for my kids. I sew for my family. You know, my kids have gone from being little kids to grown-up women in their 20s. So, you know, I sew a lot. I've sewn consistently. I run into problems and have challenging things all the time. I never get through any project without my seam ripper for some reason or another. Sometimes it's a major thing, sometimes it's not, but the major things are what I want to talk to you about today. And so I'm going to start with a fail, and I'm going to tell you why it happened, and I'm going to tell you what I want to do with this thing now. Okay, this is Simplicity 8888. It's a hacking pattern, and I wanted to make the maxi dress, which you see here. I was going to do it just like the pattern shows on the very front. I checked to see what the suggested fabrics are on the back. It will always list it for you. This says Mrs. Dress with options, and it gives you a list of suggested fabrics. One of them is gauze. I used a crinkle rayon. This is like gauze. It's rayon, so it's very drapey, but it's got some substantial weight to it. I mean, it's not heavy or anything, but it's very drapey. So what I want to show you is the way that this is made. This has a front panel and then 2 side panels, both in the front and the back, that get gathered together. And then they fall, and then on the back, it looks pretty much the same as the front, except that it has a zipper going up the back. So I got started on this, and I realized that it didn't fit. I had to take it in, and when I did that, it all stretched out of shape. So that was my fault. But then I needed to cut a new front bodice, and I didn't have enough fabric, so I ended up only cutting half of the front bodice. And I didn't want to do that because that meant I had to put a waistline seam in, but I did it anyway. And I thought, okay, fine, this is going to work. Well, I went to gather the skirt as you were supposed to do, as you can see here on the sides. And what happened was, because this fabric is so drapey and it has a moderate amount of weight to it, these seams pulled and stretched all out of shape. It looked awful, so awful. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do about this? Maybe I can stabilize those seams. Maybe, you know, this, that, and the other thing. And in the end, I figured out that nothing was going to work. And so I thought, I hate giving up on this because I don't like to fail, but you know what? This is a fail. The more I looked at it, the more I didn't like it, the more I thought, what was I thinking? I know because of this fail that when you're working with a fabric like this, you probably should stabilize it with an underlining. An underlining is a stable fabric like a batiste cotton, which is a very lightweight cotton, almost like an interfacing. An underlining works in that you cut it the same way as you cut the regular pattern piece, but you treat it with that pattern piece like one piece of fabric. It's going to make it so that it's not going to pull all out of shape, which with this kind of fabric, a rayon crinkle, which is like a gauze, essentially it functions the same as a gauze. That's what will happen if you don't stabilize it. So I gave up because I'd already put it all together and taken it apart and put it together again and taken it apart again. And I thought, no, I'm done with doing that. So this, nope, bye-bye. It no, I don't even want to deal with this anymore. I don't want to deal with this pattern again, which is probably not fair to the pattern, because had I made it out of something more stable, it would have worked, but I don't like the fabric. I don't like the pattern. I'm done. Okay, so that's a fail. It happens. My next thing I want to tell you about is something that I did recently in a makes video, and I thought I had fixed it in such a way that it was going to work. And I thought, man, if I just do this with all of my things, it's going to work every time. Nope, it won't work every time, because it didn't work this time. I am still learning to try things on as I construct them. And I am not used to doing that because, first of all, in my 20s, I could sew things right out of the envelope and they fit. Second of all, I haven't sewn for myself as much as I have other people in recent years. And so because of that, I haven't had to try things on. And thirdly, this is really important. When I made those changes, I tried it on, I felt like it fit. And then I went to wear this dress, and I realized as I was wearing it that the darts hit me way too low, that the shoulder seams were doing this, because what I did was adjust it for my body. Now my body, when I measure myself, I do my bust line measurement, and then I also do my shoulder, which is the center of your shoulder, where a shoulder seam would be. And you take the tape measure and you bring it down in front of yourself, and where the tape measure starts to come away from you, that's your apex. That's where you stick out the furthest in the front. Well, my apex always measures about 1 inch to 1.5 inches lower than the apex as it's marked on the pattern. And bust darts for me often are too long. They're not just too high, which is commonly the problem because they're facing, they're pointing towards the apex of the pattern. But what'll happen is they're too long. They want to wrap around where I stick out the furthest. And ideally, your bust darts want to fall about 1 inch short of your apex. Okay, so here I'm thinking I'll just add 2 inches to the shoulder seam where it comes up. So I did that. I added 2 inches to this right here. It lengthened the armhole, but that was going to be okay. But what it did was it dropped everything about 2 inches, which I thought fabulous. Oh, I tried it on and it looked great. And I thought, yeah, that works. And I had shortened the bust dart. It was all good. Wore it to church. And what I realized, like I said, was when I sat down, it was doing this. And I thought, well, what did I think it was going to do when I sat down? I added 2 inches to this part of the armhole, bodice, shoulder seam, whatever. And the darts fell about 1 inch too low. And I thought, oh, again, what did I think it was going to do? I thought this was going to fix everything. No. Because when you make adjustments like that, you have to account for what the place that you're adjusting and what it's going to do there. I thought that the armhole would be lengthened, it would drop the neckline down like I wanted. It really was going to function in the right way. Didn't work. It changed the design of the pattern in such a way that obviously it didn't work. So now I have this torn apart. I took the facing off. I've taken the side seams out. I'm going to redo this bust dart. So lesson learned, that didn't work. So in the future, I probably need to leave this part alone and just drop that bust dart down and shorten it, because ideally your bust dart should always come about 1 inch to 1.25 inches short, shy of your apex. Something good to keep in mind. So that is in the process of being fixed. Now the third thing I want to show you is something I did fix and it worked. Yay! Once again, I tried it, fitted it In terms of the tissue, I measured. I thought, okay, yeah, that's going to work. I shortened the bust dart. I dropped it a little bit. Not as much as I did the other one, but this is my lemon dress that I did in my last makes video. It is New Look 6263, and I made this version that was on the front of the envelope. Okay, once again, tried it on, thought this is okay, this is going to work. I did notice that it gaped a little bit in the back, because yet another fitting issue that I have is that sometimes things are too big in the back. It doesn't really affect the side seam or the front as much, but I find when I want to fit something closer to my body, it's better to take it out of the back. And this particular pattern has a center back seam, and it looks like this, which is great. Because center back seams are not always straight up and down. Sometimes they are based on the fit of the dress. But what I noticed was this one curved. So it curved away from the body. And so what I noticed was if I laid it so that it was straight, what was happening was it was doing this to accommodate for my back. And when it got up to the top, at the top of the neckline on this one, it had a little teardrop neckline and these two neckband pieces came together in the back, and they were supposed to fasten with two little buttons, which I love these little buttons because they work so well. Well, it was gaping back here, and I thought, okay, what am I going to do about that? I need to fix that. And the bust line dart was not, it was too long. Even though I'd shortened it, I thought that's going to work, but no, it didn't. So what I did was I went in and I redid the bust dart. And I don't know if you can kind of see having pressed this out, but it was longer. And so what I did was just went in and marked it about 1.25 inches less, and then I just restitched it. It was fine. It was a simple fix. Now the back, when I laid it down, it was curving. So what I did was I just drew a line to go straight up. And that seemed to fix the problem. It took that gaping part out. And I thought, all right, now I have to shorten this band. Oh my gosh, if I want it to be the same, then I'm gonna have to do, no. And I realized that if I would just sew up the back, which I did, it alleviated the buttons, the teardrop opening, the wrapping, the overlap of the band where, would have to button. No, I just cut it off. So when I cut it off, I cut off the buttonholes. It was fine. I took off the buttons, but I could easily put those back on, and it would look like it's buttoned. But that was an easy fix, and I wore this all day yesterday, and it fit perfectly. I was so happy that those fixes made it so that it fit. The other thing was, it does call for a little bow tie, and I had that on here. I didn't want to do all the hand sewing that entailed, so I had just bar tacked it on, and it was too floppy, so I just took it off. I could put another thing on, but honestly, it looks fine, just like it is with this opening. And one of the views shows it like that anyway. It's, which one is it? This one, the green one, which is view A. That was fine with me. This is the cutest little dress. I wore it out for my Valentine's Day dinner with my husband, and it worked great. So that's 3 instances of challenging garments. Once you get them done, you think they fit, or in the first case, you just give up on entirely, but you think they fit, and they don't. When you wear them, you find out that in everyday movement, it's not working. That's okay, because sometimes you can fix it, but other times, it's just time to say, okay, that was a fail. I'm going to put it in a scrap bag, give it to Goodwill, let somebody else deal with the scraps. Maybe they can make a quilt out of it. Maybe they can do something else with it. But I certainly choose not to. Whether you choose not to or you can't because of your skill level or whatever, don't feel bad about it. You learn. You learn every time. I have been sewing for all these years, and I'm still making the mistakes that I made, like with the black dress. And I think, okay, lesson learned. You know, your body changes as you age. The same things that worked years ago don't work anymore. So it's constantly a learning process. And so while your skill level has increased in that you know things to do in terms of maybe fit or techniques that you know, things like, you know, apex measurement and where it falls, how to look at the pattern, what to do about it, that kind of thing. Maybe, you know, I've learned those things, but even as I practice those techniques, I still run into huge challenges. So even in the last thing I did, it's sitting there on the ironing board. I didn't read the pattern all the way. Oh my gosh, how many times have I told new sewers to read the pattern all the way? I didn't realize that there was a contrasting collar piece, and I had to, you know, you step back and, you know, you just make do. You go, my goodness, why didn't I know that? And then you fix it, you know, the best way that you can. You know, honestly, it provides for a lot of creative thinking, because what other choice do you have? Anyway, I hope that helps you, or at least encourages you, or if you have the same kind of fit issues that I do, maybe it will enlighten you a little bit in that if you're running into some problems, and they're those kind of problems like I have, there are fixes for them. You just have to kind of figure it out as you go, because that's what sewing is. It is a constant learning process. So that's it for now for me, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.